So in this video, I'd like to talk about some of the ways that we can begin to overcome trauma and move forward and move forward into wholeness and fullness. Just a quick snapshot on what trauma is when we are threatened, our systems summon energy in order to respond to the threat. If we become overwhelmed, our systems go into an immobility or freeze response. And then as we begin thawing and coming out of the freeze response, the need is to discharge the energy that was immobilized. If the discharge doesn't happen, then we become traumatized and possibly shocked. I also like the idea that trauma does not have to be a curse. I can actually begin to look at trauma. I like to look at trauma as much as it's hard and very painful. And it's really hard work to bring myself back to myself. However, trauma could be this incredible opportunity for transformation. And what if that horrible trauma that happened was actually a gift, that then in some strange spiritual way I actually chose prior to incarnating, because working through trauma and moving through trauma will actually provide me with the tools to become the fullest whole person that I can be in this life. And so trauma could actually be a sort of rite of passage, a sort of initiation process that brings me from being a partial being into a whole, full being that can then go out into the world and share my gift with my community. The first suggestion that I have and that I've used a lot is slow down. Slow down. By slowing down, I will be able to begin feeling my sensations and and the sense of where I'm at within my body. So often, what happens quickly with trauma is that, and re-experiencing trauma is that a certain situation may, since my system is already aroused, a certain situation may trigger me to a point and activate me to a point where I quickly get so aroused that I quickly go into a dissociated state. For example, in an argument, one can begin to track when one is getting angry, and when that anger is starting to rise to a point where the system gets really aroused and the anger turns to rage, or the fear turns to terror, and it becomes overwhelming for the system and possibly traumatizing. The suggestion is to really begin to slow down and track your own experience. Track your own bodily sensation. Notice when I'm actually beginning to leave my body, when it doesn't feel like I'm fully here in my body. I can't feel my fullness. I can't fully feel my feet. I can't fully feel my hands, my back, my chest. Certain places of my body may feel numb. So just beginning to notice that, when I begin dissociating from parts of myself. So the first tool that I like to offer is coming from the work of David Berceli. And David Berceli created this tool called trauma releasing exercises. The undischarged energy that lives inside the body stores itself in the psoas muscle. The psoas muscle that it's in the pelvic area. So he believes that if we can find a way of having that muscle shake, by shaking, then I will be releasing the undischarged energy and therefore discharging the energy. So he has a series of physical exercises, really gentle, really simple, that by doing them daily, the person can actually begin tiring their legs, their thighs particularly, and then the body will naturally, the pelvis will naturally begin shaking, and by shaking it will release the stored energy, and therefore liberating one of trauma and bringing one back to balance. I know that war veterans have been using his tools, and they've been working great. There's great results that's been achieved through his method, and I've personally used, and I can say that it's really gentle and it works fantastic. The next tool I'd like to talk about is one that I find to be incredibly powerful, and that's Gabrielle Roth 5-rhythm dancing. And it's a system where one dances, it's a free form of dancing, and during the dance there's somewhat of a structure to the dance, and the dance is called a wave because the dance starts with the first 2 rhythms of flowing and staccato, and those rhythms create the foundations for one to then get to a place of high arousal where one is shaking, and it can eventually reach a state of ecstasy. And then through the rhythms of lyrical and the stillness, one can come back to a sense of balance and peace. And this particular dance, an incredible tool to begin facing one's emotions, to begin helping one get in contact with their felt sense and their sense of embodying a physical body. And so it's absolutely an incredible tool that I highly recommend. The third tool I want to talk about is what was created by Stephanie Mines, and it's called Jinshin Tara, which is kind of her spin-off from the ancient Japanese art of Jinshin-do. And Jinshin-do is basically an acupressure technique, is energy medicine. Stephanie Mines has worked specifically on the issue of trauma and shock. So her work is great because it really concentrates on this issue of unwinding and resolving trauma. The way that her Jinshin Tara works is by connecting with the subtle pulse that it's going on at all times within the body, and we connect with the pulse through the fingertips. So this first point helps one to come to the present moment and to be here and be clear-headed, clear-minded. And we do this by holding with our fingers. We hold 2 points right under the collarbone, close to where the bone is. She also says, don't worry about getting the exact point right. Just set the intention of coming to the present moment more, and just hold these 2 points right under the collarbone for a few moments and breathe. Begin to focus on the pulsing, and once I feel a slight pulsing on the fingertips, on my left hand and on my right hand, once the 2 pulsing on the 2 hands, on the 2 fingers, balance out and come into harmony, then that pathway, that channel of energy is being restored, and I actually do end up feeling more present. The second point that I would love to offer is one that I actually used and use every night before going to bed. It helps my system relax, and I use this when I notice I'm tense, I'm about to give a speech, or prior to a test at school. And this is a point that I actually got from another acupressure master, Michael Reed Gach, and it's here on the wrist, and with 3 fingers, I'm gonna put the 3 fingers right at the end of my hand, right where the wrist bone is, and where the 3rd finger hit, I'm gonna place my finger right there in the middle of my wrist. And then on the other hand, right exactly on the other side, I'm going to place my thumb. And just holding like this, holding the pressure like this. Don't have to press too strong, just slightly press. And again, feeling the pulse and breathing. It usually takes about 1 to 2 minutes. And when the pulse balances out, my system actually does feel much more calm and centered and relaxed. The third and final point I'd love to offer is from Stephanie Mines again, and it's called Flow Out of Panic. And this helps immediately after noticing that I'm in trauma or shock response. This helps fantastic. And basically, with my right hand, I'm gonna hold the top part of my arm, and then with my left index, I'm gonna hold between the pinky toe and the other one, the ring toe. I'm gonna hold that space right there and just feel again until the two pulses balance out. And once that's done, I'm gonna switch over and do it on the other one. And I can do this 3 times. And what usually happens again is that there's science behind it. The system is actually releasing subtle layers of wound up stored energy, wound up trauma. It's a method that uses the felt sense and helps one find a place of safety within their body and bring that safe energy within the body to the parts of the body that have that feel rageful, terrified, overwhelmed, and then begins to bring a sense of balance to the system. I want to tell a quick story of how the felt sense has helped me unwind the trauma, complete the action that did not get completed when I was originally traumatized. Yesterday I went with a friend in the forest here in Boulder, and we were doing some therapy session, and he was asking me certain questions, and I got to a state of feeling enormously vulnerable and contacting a part of myself that felt very contracted, enormously terrified, and I noticed myself getting aroused. And by that I mean I noticed getting in touch with that original traumatic energy in my body. So I was very aroused and my system was very contracted, and I was just watching my experience and trying to find a place of groundness and calm as I was very contracted. Then suddenly I hear a noise to my left, and a dog pops out of the bushes, running happily with a ball in his mouth, wagging his tail, just running towards me. What I did is I got startled for a moment, and I saw that it was a dog, and my brain processed quickly. Oh, what a cute dog. Oh, what a cute dog with a ball in his mouth. Oh, look, the cute dog is running away. Oh, how cute. However, what had really happened inside my body is that my system got startled and my system got activated. I was already in an activated place. I was already in an aroused place. And by the dog jumping suddenly, my system got even more aroused. So what I did, instead of just kind of justifying, it's a cute dog, it's running away, oh, how cute the dog is, I actually slowed down and connected with my body and began feeling what was actually happening inside my body. Now remember, this is a really very small episode and nothing enormously traumatic, a dog jumping out of the bushes. However, I was already in an aroused state. So what I did is I went inside my body and I started tracking my inner experience, my inner sensations, and I noticed how aroused I was. And the energy that came was one that felt really aggressive, really violent. The fight response, the fight or flight my system wanted the fight response. A dog popped out and my system wanted to fight it, to defend myself. Rightfully so, it's healthy aggression. So what I did is I began replaying the scene in my mind of the dog jumping out, and with my imagination I kind of followed what my body would have wanted to do, which is attack the dog and strangle it and kill it, to defend myself. Again, healthy aggression. So I connected with myself at that deep level, and I imagine myself just standing up and just jumping towards the dog and attacking it and defending myself by doing so. In the meantime, I was sitting and just tracking my inner experience, tracking my inner sensations. And so what I noticed is that as I was imagining myself jumping towards the dog, my muscles started tightening. My leg muscles started shivering as if I was actually jumping. My body started shaking slightly. And then once my system and in my imagination I felt like I had defended myself and I completed the action that I chose not to do because of my mind and because I realized it was a cute dog. Once in my imagination I had completed the action, and my body, my physical body also had, through shaking and quivering, had discharged the energy, all of a sudden I found myself relaxing, and I was suddenly breathing fully, and it's as if my system had really let go of something. So I did not hold on to what would otherwise have been a very small but traumatic incident. And I was able by trusting what the body wanted to do and using my imagination, I was able to discharge the energy. And eventually then I was laughing with joy because I was like, this is amazing, this stuff works, this is incredible. So anyway, those are a few tips that I want to offer. The work of David Berceli, Gabrielle Roth, 5 Rhythm Dancing, the Jinshin Tara by Stephanie Mines, and then ultimately the Somatic Experiencing of Peter Levine. The suggestion is to become really familiar with your sensations. The sensations eventually can give way to naming a feeling. This particular sensation, the constricting sensation, feels like fear. The fear, naming the fear is a kind of a mental connotation to a bodily sensation. So the suggestion is to just stick with your sensation. Just stick with the sensations of the body. Just trust the body, and follow what the body would want to do. Follow what the body follow what the body did not get a chance to complete because it went into overwhelm and went into freeze. And also find a way of keeping track of your experience by finding a place in your body that feels safe. Often for me it's my feet. My feet feels really grounded and safe. So as I'm feeling my body, for example, as I'm imagining myself attacking the dog, if the rage gets too intense in my body, if the sensations of rage get too intense, then back off a little bit and go back feeling your feet. Come back to a sense of grounding. Come back to a sense of quiet and stillness, safety, and then come back to the sense of aggression and rage, and by doing so, back and forth between the intense aggression, intense rage, and the sense of safety. By going back to these two parts of the body, for me it was my feet were safe, my chest and legs and arms felt the aggression. By going back between these two places and titrating between the two, oscillating between the two, I can begin bringing my system back to center and back to balance. I hope that this helps you move back into fullness and wholeness. And please check the resources that I'm going to write down there. There is so much good work being done right now on trauma. Please use the tools.